Well, this is either a favorite time for a lot of fan bases or it's a favorite time for a lot of fan bases. Let me explain. You're either looking at the draft and getting ready for the draft and looking at all the coaches and just
That 9th overall pick, baby. I'm so excited.
Exploring all the opportunities, right? Or your team's in the playoffs and you're looking forward to that. So everybody, this is probably the only time of year where everybody is happy at some aspect of it, just because you're either projecting forward, looking towards the draft, or you're looking forward to the playoffs. We're going to get started. Let's talk about the firing, the coaching tree, which is the coaching carousel, which is about to start. Raiders fire Pete Carroll. I thought that was pretty much expected. That was a weird high. I liked what they were trying to do. We talked about this before. I liked what they were trying to do, but then he meddled. Like, you got hired to literally be the CEO of the Raiders, and you brought your two sons in on the offensive side, which we are now finding out is the reason why Chip Kelly wasn't able to run anything he wanted on offense. And then you basically were like, I want you to run the Legion of Boom playbook to Patrick Graham, who, by the way, I think is not getting enough credit. It will be interesting to see if they try and retain him, because if I'm the new head coach, I'm like, look, I don't want Patrick Graham leaving. I want him to do what he was doing before this year.
Right. They kept him on with Carroll because he was on the Antonio Pierce staff. So, I mean, and he might have been on the Josh McDaniel staff, if I remember correctly. He's just been on. I mean, that's how crazy if he stays on, he'll be on his 4th head coach in about 4 or 5 years.
Golly, the Raiders. But it also proves that he's good. That's the other thing too. Is I don't want people to think you could totally tell he was not able to run what he normally runs.
And if I'm not right about the Josh McDaniels thing, I think he was on multiple staffs when he was the defensive coordinator with the Giants. Right. And so he crossed over between Joe Judge and Brian Dable or whatever. So all right, Jonathan Gannon gone out from Arizona. The fume. That was the first clip that everybody decided to tweet out as soon as that news hit the scene. But I knew it kind of hit you a little harder because you've been in love with what they ran defensively before the season, but things just kind of fell apart as they went down the stretch, because outside of Budda Baker, they kind of just started falling apart injury-wise. Yeah, and then it was just oh yeah, they're the Cardinals.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing too, is look, I've said this before, any scheme that lives on a razor's edge of the 11 players that we have to play, that's typically not going to work out. I thought it was really cool because here's an NFL team doing something outside of the box because of the personnel that they have. They tried to kind of double down. We talked about this a couple weeks ago, always be leery of, hey, this guy, especially Sweat, was really good with the Eagles. Well, that whole defensive line was really good because they were able to rotate them out. They basically had 8 deep there, and the 2 interior guys were really good. So it was kind of almost like manufacturing that. So that's something to be thinking. I think if Gannon doesn't want to sit for a year, I think he'll easily be able to have I think he will be perfectly fine going and being a defensive coordinator. I thought he did a really, really good job with the Eagles. But like you said, anytime you can't get the quarterback situation correct, and then the defense just never came into fruition. It never gelled. It never really looked good. For a full season, it had spurts where it looked good, but it wasn't really there. I think let's transition to, I think you like this. You love Stefanski, but this was probably the most obvious firing, but also everybody's don't do it because you're dumb and it's really your fault.
Was it that obvious? They won week 18. Was it that obvious for everybody?
Well, but you know what I mean?
I was a little baffled, if I'm being honest.
Yes. No, I think everybody head scratch, okay, but here's again, this is bad. Bad organizations continuously be bad because of the owner and the choices they make. Everybody is telling you, don't sign Deshaun Watson. What do? You give him a guaranteed contract. Fully guaranteed. That's going to anchor for the next couple of years. This is not going away. You then fire a head coach that everybody's telling you the moment that you fire him, he'll probably be a head coach somewhere else. And what do? You just go ahead and fire him. So I don't know. I would have liked just to keep, they're now saying, okay, well, maybe we'll get Jim Schwartz in here. What do you, it's look, if you wanted to keep the DC, just keep the head coach, just actually let him do his job. But then again,
do it.
Yeah. You know how it is. I thought another one that was a little bit surprising to me was the Falcons firing Raheem Morris after 2 years, which it came out. The reason why they didn't sign Belichick was because they really thought he only wanted to get the head coaching record, or like he wanted to get the wins record, and then he was going to bounce. And they were like, oh, well, we don't want to do that. But then here you are firing a guy after you drafted a rookie quarterback at 8 that everybody was kind of like, it looked really good. Then now he's hurt again. So I thought that was really weird.
Well, and I think this is actually where Stefanski actually fits the best, because you see what he's able to do with the run game in Cleveland with Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt when they were in their primes, and Bijan Robinson is what he is. Then you have, Kyle Pitts, don't know what they're probably going to do, have 1 foot in, 1 foot out, whatever. But Drake London, we'll see with Kyle Penix if and when he comes back, what they do with Kirk Cousins. I mean, we've talked about that, where he thinks he's out of the door, but also the Falcons are like, we need something to hold on to. And I think a new GM and a new coach will be like, all right, Kirk, hold on. And I think Kevin Stefanski is the perfect guy to do that, at least for a year. Maybe you're in the quarterback market next year. Maybe Penix is back from injury halfway through next year, whatever that situation looks like. But then again, you have all the reasons that you're going through here. I think we've talked about it here, but Kevin Stefanski is the number one candidate. The Falcons might be the best job, and I want to talk about this here later. All of these jobs suck.
Yes. Raiders, I would not. Dude, that roster is a dumpster fire. Absolute dumpster fire. Like, you have some talent on the offensive side. Like, you have some pieces, but like, you have Geno Stone, which we know is going to be a 30-30 quarterback. He's going to be mid to below average. The Cardinals is again, Raiders and Cardinals are both one of those deals where it was old ownership. They got poor. At least the Raiders went in and got some cash injection. The Cardinals is not going to be great. The Browns is not going to be great. The Falcons, I think, like you said, is a good one. And I like the Stefanski because the other people that they've asked is Clint Kubiak and Anthony Weaver. Those are the only ones that I kind of listed in our notes were people that if they had already requested. We don't want to get into speculation. I don't like where guys would fit. I don't like doing that, and that takes too much time. But I do agree. Like, this is what we're talking about. Is this a good pathway for success, or is it not? I think the Falcons, if you give me Stefanski, I can fix this for a year with Cousins, but you do have to have a plan post this season. And I think Cousins fully expects to be gone. But if I'm Stefanski, I'm like, guys, give me him for 1 year, whether we draft a quarterback this year or not. Give me him 1 more year. We got to see what Penix can do, maybe calm him down and not necessarily have him run the ball all the time. But I like the Clint Kubiak. I like Anthony Weaver. This is a good defensive roster that I think could get better with a couple of things. They're also searching for a GM. So there's just a lot of questions.
Mm-hmm. Or if I'm Atlanta, Malik Willis was cracking. I don't know. Why not?
No, I like that. Yes, and coming from the LaFleur system, I don't think Stefanski is more of an old school offshoot of the Shanahan system. He's not necessarily kind of the new school with the younger crowd.
And so Kirk would work too.
Yes, I think to me he makes a lot of sense. That's why I think Kubiak makes a lot of sense. If you're going to go Anthony Weaver and go a defensive coach again, I need to know who you're going to bring with you. Who are you going? That's always the next question, especially when you have a young quarterback that's coming in. The Titans, I think, are really interesting. You just drafted a quarterback and had an offensive hire. You fired him. Obviously, it didn't work out. All of the people that they've requested, outside of Nagy, Spagnuolo, Vance Joseph, Lou Anarumo, defense. I think everybody's like, Nagy's
not Nagy.
Nagy's not going there.
No. Give him the job. Give it to him.
Yeah, I know. All the Chiefs fans are like, please go and do this. I think it's really weird. This whole defense the defense there just needs kind of a little bit of a reshuffle. Offensively, I think they haven't had a receiver since they traded AJ Brown, which is basically what got Vrabel fired, because he just was like, y'all are stupid, I'm leaving.
Oh man.
Yeah, it's not good. The rumor is Stefanski is really high up in the Giants as well. I think he makes a lot of sense with the Giants with Jackson Dart. Matt Burke, DC at Houston, is getting a lot of love there. Jeff Hafley, Clint Kubiak again, Marcus Freeman interviewed, quote unquote. I don't know how much we really believe that. But if you're a head coach, and this is my question to you, Felix, if you're a head coach, knowing that they're keeping the GM, who we all know why this GM is super famous, is because he let Saquon Barkley walk. I don't know what, there is something between the owner and Joe Schoen. Shane. He's staying. Mm-hmm. The Browns GM is staying as well, which tells me the owner made the decision. I really don't think fans and probably people from outside looking in don't understand how often, when something goes horrendously wrong, it's typically the owner that just goes and makes a random, no, this is what we're doing. And then you can tell everybody around is I don't know, man. But hey, we got to roll with it because you're the one that pays the bills.
Right. I mean, it's just such a strange situation. If I'm a head coaching candidate and I'm looking for a gig and you've kept your GM, well, he's been a part of the problem for the last 4 or 5 years or whatever the case has been at this point. In a case like Atlanta, they have a good basis. They just didn't have a very good coach. They made a big risk on the quarterback situation with Penix and Kirk Cousins, and it didn't work. That's a head coaching and GM situation. A two-man situation or a two-man operation, whether it's Kevin Stefanski and whomever they hire to be the GM, it is kind of interesting. But I think if I'm a candidate, I'm never taking that type of job because it's if I'm a GM candidate and there's a head coach that's gonna stay, I'm taking that job because I can fire that guy in 2 years and be like, right, we're starting back over. The tarmacs start back over. So in a coaching candidate situation, you have no leverage. Why would you take that situation?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. Well, and here's the argument. The argument always to this is always going to be there's only 32 of these jobs, and somebody's going to take it. Ben
Johnson did for 3 cycles, and then
I agree.
Got the Bears. I know that he's a very individual situation, but it worked out.
No, I'm totally with you. I don't know. I think if I'm Stefanski, I just sit back because if you don't want to wait on me, then you weren't probably going to give me the job to begin with.
Or we're recording this on January 6th, Tuesday. Baltimore still hasn't moved yet. Do they get rid of Harbaugh? It does, and we're going to talk about the playoffs here in a little bit. Sean McDermott in Buffalo, if they lose in round 1 to Jacksonville, what is the move? That automatically, those 2 jobs are 1,000 times, eons better than
Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson.
Any of these jobs we've talked about, all combined and to the nth degree. So it is one of those things. If I'm Kevin Stefanski, I'm even if I like the Falcons as we currently stand, I think it's the best job. The other people might think about the Giants or whatever it is, or the Titans, depending on how you feel about the quarterbacks at those spots. But at the same time, because of the fragility of these playoffs, and how things still might go, I would be comfortable with resting for just a little bit.
Yeah, I agree with you too. If I'm Stefanski, there's nothing on this list that really makes me I'm not going to jump. I would I would go and interview with the Falcons. I'd probably interview with the Giants only because I don't think that roster's that far away. Same with the Falcons.
Jackson Dart, dude.
I get that. And maybe you feel like you can control them a little bit. I think the other weird one that you mentioned the Bills and the Ravens is they could move on. I think the Ravens I think both coordinators are gone with the Ravens. I think that's just he's going to completely reshuffle that whole staff. If he doesn't, I think he should. Right. The Dolphins to me are interesting. And I saw somebody, I cannot remember who said this, but it was one of the insiders, but it was Mike McDaniel is not going to get fired this year. And I think it's really interesting. They're going to hire a GM, but it's why bring in a new coach this cycle when we know that we're not going to be able to get rid of the Tua contract until probably next year. It'll be a lot better. Mm-hmm. All 3. This is the other thing that I think is interesting.
I just put this together reading the notes, but yeah, go ahead.
All three of the people that they've asked for, so four. There's four people that they've already asked for interviews for the GM. Three of them are from the 49ers. The other one is the assistant GM for the Rams. I don't think McDaniel. I think that the owner likes McDaniels, and I think that they believe that it's the quarterback and it's not the play caller, and they've had bad injury luck.
I think, and like this is like a huge 2026 season hot take. Dolphins could win 8 games next year, be somewhere around that playoff conversation, depending on how the AFC East and AFC in general kind of fall. But I mean, Mike McDaniel's going to stay around because he's an offensive mind, and if things come together, and guess who his quarterback is? He's been running that offense for the last 5 years. It's Quinn Ewers.
Yes.
Who knows? It's just a thing that might work in the NFL. We've seen crazier things like, I don't know, Mr. Irrelevant becoming a legitimate Super Bowl contending quarterback on a regular basis. And so maybe, but that's a training camp way down the road conversation. But that is a reason why I think that they're we'll see.
I would, before we move on to some coordinator stuff, I would just put a pin in this. If you're listening, and then Felix, remind me too, put a pin in this. Let's talk about this after the first week of free agency, because if they go and they try and rebuild that offensive line, what that tells me is that they really want to keep McDaniels. This is the weirdest one to me, because all the signals are McDaniels has.
They were going to fire him 6 weeks ago.
Yeah, it's weird. I don't know. Look, it's the NFL, man. I can't tell you what these billionaire owners are doing.
And Stephen Ross might be one of the crazier ones of all the crazy billionaires, but neither here nor there. All right. Cowboys fire Matt Eberflus, and then Cliff Kingsbury and Joe Witt are out in Washington, NFC East, doing some shuffling around. What do you see the Cowboys doing? We've talked about it the last couple of weeks, and it's become because it's the Cowboys. One of the conversations. Brian Flores, does he show up there? What happens with this Cowboys defense that we saw some improvement with in the middle part of the season, but also it's the Giants hung 34 on them.
It was for a month. It was for a month where they looked good. To me, I think the Flores is a little bit of a pipe dream. I've heard Jim Leonard's name thrown around. That would be awesome if Vance Joseph doesn't get a head coaching job. So if Vance Joseph gets a head coaching job, Jim Leonard's staying in Colorado. I can guarantee that. I don't think he's leaving to go to Dallas. Why would you leave to go to Dallas when you already have you have essentially ran the back end for Joseph already? A name to think about, and there's two of them from the Seahawks, is Aiden Dirty, who was with the Cowboys for a long time when they were really good on the front. My only hesitation with him is, do you know the back end? Because that's really where I think that the Cowboys need to pivot, is somebody that's going to clean up the back end. There are some pieces on the roster in the secondary that are pretty good. But here's my dark horse one, and I've said this before. It's Carl Scott, the passing game coordinator for the Seahawks. He has now worked under kind of the Fangio. We're trying to work with the Clint Hurt. We're trying to work in the Fangio. He worked for Nick Saban forever. If you're listening to this, you've probably watched his YouTube on Cover 7. So, you've probably seen that clinic. And then he now has worked under Macdonald. So I don't know. I'm always leery when a guy hasn't been able to really spread his wings with a resume like that, especially in a passing league. But he is a dark horse name to think. I'm trying to think. Jim Schwartz to me would be easy button if they can get him. But those would be the names that I would think with that.
I was just trying to think of who's on the Houston staff, because I don't know, the two Texas teams always just kind of run in my mind together, but that's neither here nor there. All right. We've talked a lot about head coaches and we've talked a lot about former head coaches. I think Stefanski kind of really jacked up this cycle because we didn't think he was going to lose his job, and now he's a candidate for just about every other job. But Mike McCarthy's also been mentioned here, but some of the hotter names that throughout the season kind of tailed off throughout the season, but I don't know why in Jesse Minter's case. But in Chris Shula's case, the defense has kind of fallen off in these last couple of weeks. The two LA defensive coordinators, how do you feel about if they fit anywhere? I mean, obviously with the limited quality in all of these jobs, one of them might just be like, all right, I'll be the head coach of the Cardinals. Fine. And so like, is that more of the situation like them and a Jeff Hafley get jobs just because of that?
I think it has all to do with like youth too. Like look, if I'm Jesse Minter or Chris Shula, I'm taking the first NFL job that I get. Now, if I get multiple offers, I'm going to try and take the best one. But if I get one offer and it happens to be the Browns, I'm taking it just because one, that defense is really good. We're going to get the Deshaun. You figure that maybe you can clean something up and get the maybe Deshaun Watson something. You know what I mean? Like you can survive a couple years. Look. Minter and Shula fit to me. A lot of this is because they're forward-thinking defensive coaches. I think Minter is he comes from the Raven system, which a lot of people enjoy. He's worked with Harbaugh, so he's going to have some sort of a pivot towards 12 personnel, wanting to run the ball. I think he's done a really good job of maxing out the roster that they do have at the Chargers. I think Shula is why he's not the number one candidate. I get Stefanski, but like he should be the number one candidate. The guy has worked for Sean McVay. He's basically best friends with Sean McVay on the other side, right? He's worked for Staley. He's a Wade Phillips guy too. His last name is Shula. And I know the NFL
in a league where nepotism always works. Why are we just hopping on this one immediately?
So I think these are two. I think these are two really good candidates. I think they will be. The one, like if you pivot to the offense, like Kingsbury, I don't think will get a head coaching job. I don't.
Job in Kansas City.
I don't. Now I know you would love to have him in Kansas City. I think he would help out the passing game. They still got to. To me though, they still got to figure out the run game. Nagy, I know you want Nagy to get out of there. I just don't see that happening.
He's on the last year of his deal, and that's the only way it will. Where Brett Veach just steps in and is like, all right, Andy, all right, wrap it up with him.
That's you need to come back to we're over. We need a refresh. Look, we talked about this now for probably the last month of like just I think the Ravens and the Chiefs are two organizations. I think the Eagles as well. Sirianni's got to look in the mirror after the playoffs are over and just these three coaches are like, look, we have really good programs. We have really good organizational structures. We've got to figure out the coordinator piece to this, and we have to move into the next phase or this next era of however long it's going to be of football. I think that one would be those three right there, like you need a reshuffle.
Absolutely. All right. Let's look back at this 2025 regular season. Cody's gathered 5 interesting things as we head into the playoffs with some stats and trends and data. There was a couple of teams that defense wasn't the problem, even though it may have appeared that it was the problem. 2 teams like the Detroit Lions and the Indianapolis Colts. We've talked about Lou Anarumo on multiple occasions. We've talked about all these different coaches getting interviews. He's one of them. And then Kelvin Shepard taking over for Aaron Glenn in this last year. It was felt like it was rocky, but at the same time, things proved out that these 2 teams were actually quality defensive teams.
Yeah, I think people understand what happened in Indianapolis. Yes, it's a historical collapse, but when you have a quarterback and it's the whole deal of like, we don't have a backup, right? I mean, Anthony Richardson gets hurt early on. I don't know if he would have been able to win any more games. I think he would have been as successful as Phillip Rivers was. At least you're getting completions with Phillip Rivers. To me, they finished number 5 in efficiency. Inconsistent pass rush, which I think, look, I like the Latu kid. I think we all know like Buckner's really good. You need kind of that extra guy. We got to find one more guy on that edge to kind of be consistent. They don't really have a linebacker that's a good blitzer either. So adding like a kind of an element, I think next year to kind of give that. Anarumo wants to cook. He wants to put some more ingredients into what he's doing. So I think like he showed you that this year. I think the secondary too will be interesting. Travarius Ward and Sauce Gardner I thought was going to be really good, but now Ward's coming out saying he may retire because of concussions. I think the whole deal with his daughter, don't know if you followed that along at all, but like that's why there was a big reason why he left San Francisco. Just he's been going through a lot. So him kind of taking time off, like, getting healthy, we'll see how that goes. Look, at the end of the day, the Colts are really good at stopping the run, but couldn't collect sacks on third down. So it was like the front was good, not great. And I think if you can amplify that, that'll be better. I think people would be surprised with the Lions, whereas you look at it and most people are like, yes, I agree. Like Matt Campbell calling plays probably wasn't the greatest thing ever. But losing Ben Johnson, you're going to have a year where it looks really funky. I think people were worried about it. We talked about it here on the show of like when they lost both of their safeties, it just didn't look right.
The same thing that happened to them at the end of last year.
Yes. And so secondary with injuries was one of them. They went from 14th, from 4th to 14th in DVOA. So, they plummeted. And then also in the back half. So this is 2 years in a row where you're trying to play. They were at 56. I have the data. They were 56% base this year, which is insane. That's no one's even close. When you play that much base, that secondary has to be healthy. And then your front has to really work. Someone asked me the other day, like, hey, if you're the Detroit Lions, what's the one thing that you need to add? Give me someone that can win consistently opposite Hutchins. So I don't have to just have a game record one and he has to wreck the whole entire game. I need somebody else. I also think too with you don't have to have Barnes on there all the time because everybody knows even when Barnes is on there, he's not really rushing the passer. So it's still a 4-man rush. So you have to really amplify everything with pressure. So I think like there's a couple of tweaks. I like what the DC did. I think he was fine. I think what they were doing some really interesting stuff with man coverage this year to fit what they were trying to do. I think in year 2, he'll be even better.
Yeah. All right. Some defenses that don't seem like they're the problem. In fact, for some parts of the season, they were for one of these teams, at least they were winning games for them, the Chargers and the Patriots. They at least with Mike Vrabel, and they've been improved from what they were last year, but they feel like the Patriots should have a good defense, probably just because Belichick and Teddy Bruschi. But it is these two teams will be playing each other round 1 of the playoffs in the AFC side of the playoffs, number 2 versus number 7. But I mean, two defenses that may struggle, but don't you feel like that's probably still an incredibly low scoring game just because it's Jim Harbaugh and Mike Vrabel. What are we doing?
Yeah, Harbaugh's going to hold on to the ball. He's going to keep Herbert. I think, yeah. So basically,
and Mike Vrabel's nose is going to be red the whole time, like just because it's cold.
Yes. Yes. I think with this, I think most people understand the Patriots' strength of schedule just was not great. My argument to that is always, I don't want to hear about strength of schedule. You have to win these games. You have to play these games, and you have to finish it. The NFL is a razor thin. The difference between, I'm just saying this right now, the difference between the best team in the NFL and the worst team in the NFL is not as wide of a gap as you think.
It's about 4 players.
Right. And it could even be one player, which is a quarterback. So I think like you look at it this way and it's like, okay, I think the Chargers, why is Jesse, if you're like, well, if the Chargers defense isn't as good as everybody says, why is Jesse Minter? It's because that roster really is not that great, but he's been able to maximize a couple of players. That secondary, he's been able to get that secondary to play really, really well with guys that you just don't necessarily think that you would want on your team, right? So yes, obviously everybody wants Derwin James. He's an alien. But everybody kind of else is just kind of like a really hard worker, right? So they're really a
Mac on his last leg.
Right. They're an average defense. They won close games because of like turnover luck. The schedule played out for them. They really haven't been that great. So going forward, and the reason why I wanted to bring this up is because the Patriots are going to be the number 2 seed here, but they're like a bruised fruit. It looks good, and then you turn it over and you're like, oh, I don't think I'm going to put this back on the card. And that's because efficiency-wise, I've mentioned this a few times on here, efficiency-wise, it like DVOA hates the Patriots just because it's like you're not really playing anybody, but you're not the juggernaut that it implies that you are. I would still put a pause on that and say that when they can run the ball, they're really, really dangerous because Drake May can do all the things that a young quarterback helps, play action, scrambling, all of those things really help. So that to me is that matchup to me is I want to see what these defenses look like going forward.
Right. All right. A good description I heard of this defense is a sheep in wolves clothing. A little bit here with the San Francisco 49ers because like early part of the season, Big Bob Saleh was back and like you love seeing his bald head, fist pumping on the sidelines and doing all that stuff. And it was working. And like the 49ers, they were in the running for the number 1 seed in the NFC up until like the last week of the season until they fell apart against the Seahawks. But that's neither here nor there. Taking a look at what their defense is doing this year, allowing a lot of yards, but because of how efficient their offense is, they've been able to manage how efficient their defense is, and by not just they'll play the game of like, all right, kick a field goal, we'll score a touchdown.
Yeah, it's the 4-point swing, right? Like, I call it the mosquito defense, right? It's annoying. It's annoying, but when it sticks you, it's going to hurt. Like, I don't want to, I'm going to end up slapping myself, right?
Yeah.
So they let you march down the field. You're burning clock, and then you kick a field goal or you get a turnover. And I think what you just mentioned, the piece, this is to me what Shanahan has done this year, and why I think he really is a coach of the year is just because that's
complementary football.
Yes.
Like that's not just like, oh, we play good defense, we play good offense. That's complementary football where it's like, sure, you might drive the football down, but we're not going to let you score, and we're going to have to also drive the football down and score a touchdown on the other end.
Yeah, and I think like bend don't break defense gets thrown around way too much. This literally is a bend don't break defense. This is literally, we know you're going to get it down to the 30. We're going to then be able to kind of mitigate what you do. We're going to be really good in the red zone. I think they were dead last in yards allowed, and then they were also second, but they were second in points per drive. So it's like point per game. So it's like you have this dichotomy of like, we're going to give up a lot of yards, but you're not going to be able to score. And then our offense is going to go score touchdowns. I think when you get in a situation like with the Seahawks, is just that that was a low scoring game, but I don't think anybody was ever in doubt that the Seahawks were going to win that game.
No.
And it proved this point of you're driving a lot of yards, but you're not scoring any points. What were they in? They were in the red zone like almost five times. It came away with 13 points. And so
they got their arms around that game in the first quarter, and it was just like, all right, here we
touchdown. Go. I said this on people, all the 49ers fans on YouTube were killing me because I did that deal of the math problem video, and it's just a 2-minute and 30-second video, but it was like, how could you say that the game was sealed up in 5 minutes or like 5 minutes left of the first quarter? I was like, because that was the only touchdown scored. You could totally tell like it wasn't going to matter. I don't think the winning probability of the Seahawks dropped below 70% the entire time. So
right, and that's going to come back to bite the Niners in the ass here, but we'll talk about that here in a little bit. But talking about those Seattle Seahawks, we've talked about how great that defense is. And I think like nationally the narrative is like, oh, Sam Darnold, another 14-win season. Everybody's doubting him, whatever. No. Mike McDonald is an elite defensive coach because ever since that first Rams game, and I know he threw four interceptions in that game, Sam Darnold hasn't been as good as he has been, even though they've been winning games, and he was really good in that second Rams game on the comeback. But at the same time, a lot of this has to come down to, damn, we got another Legion of Boom.
Yeah, and I think where they're elite. So looking at the analytics from this past year, they kill you in the middle of the field. And that has really been the easy button for a lot of quarterbacks. And that's really, if you talk to any offense coordinators, like we have to get the ball in that intermediate right there. They are far and away the number one team in number one defense. I think a lot of it has to do with the way that they play zone defense. They play a ton of zone. They mix in enough man to keep you honest. So all these crossing routes, all these dig routes, all these things attacking the middle, you are not allowed to do that. It's almost like Macdonald is saying, I will give you fade routes. So I will give you the least efficient throw in football. And by the way, I have corners that can match up with any receiver that you have. And so now we're going to be the number one defense on third down. We're going to win early by not allowing you to run the ball. And then we're going to then hold it. Look, I don't think people realize, like, the Seattle Seahawks offense is maybe 10th in DVOA. Or 10th or 11th in DVOA. It's not really even an elite offense. This defense is so good that it just pulls their whole entire scheme up. And that's what I said, like, to those 49ers fans, like, bro, you weren't going to score the rest of the game. Like, did you not watch? Like, that defense was not, they were locked in. They were not going, you were not scoring a touchdown. The only way you were going to beat them is kicking 5 field goals. And I don't think that they were going to be able to do that. So I think that to me is them and Houston, which brings us up to the last one. Both of these defenses in the fourth quarter are on a completely different level. Now, Seattle likes to do a little bit more schematically. We've talked about this before. Like the Houston is just the ass whooper scheme. Like, we're going to literally line up in a 4-2-5. We'll play cover 3 quarters and cover 1. That's it.
They're like the basketball players that would slap the court. They'd be like, all right, what's up?
Yes. Full court press the whole way. You don't have it. Somebody was like, I think it's really interesting. When you have Stingley, you have Lassiter, and you have Petrie, who you could argue are all 3 all-pros this year. What are you going to do? You can't throw to the slot. I can't throw outside. They've got good enough safety play.
I can't wait to talk about this Steelers-Texans game. I can't wait.
But we say that, and this thing could literally be 7-6.
Hold on. Yes, but Aaron Rodgers is going to suffer the whole time. But
all right, let's get to it. Enough with the stats. Okay, everybody's like, I'm trying to get my calculator out. Let's talk about it. Let's get into the Texans and Steelers. Let's talk about it.
Okay, so Aaron Rodgers, aside from that Browns game, the most recent Browns game, has been pretty good down the stretch. And his whole thing has been getting the ball out quickly. And I think that, and he's getting DK Metcalf back to start the playoffs, and I think that's awesome. People want Aaron Rodgers and the Steelers to go on a run, and maybe it will happen. I might be completely wrong. I have also seen the Texans defense. I've also seen them do ridiculous things to Josh Allen, one of the most mobile quarterbacks in the league. Now you got an old man, a statue, a 42-year-old quarterback back there. It's not only that they have a great front, they have all the guys you just mentioned. They can cover too.
Yes.
So, like, what is Aaron Rodgers and the Pittsburgh Steelers going to do? Because, all right, Derek Stingler, you got DK.
Yeah,
you guys are done.
Well, I think we saw this against this is what lost. So they're going to bring the same game plan in. They'll probably adjust it a little bit, but it'll be the same game plan like for the Steelers that they brought in to the Browns.
They lost.
I know. That's my point.
They lost. Like, that's not going to work.
That's my point.
For the Browns. And
yes,
hopefully the Texans are
okay.
better.
Remember what we did against the Browns. Let's just do it a little bit better. And the problem with that is you have a better team.
Aside from Myles Garrett, who's probably the single best player between those two defenses, they've got Will Anderson, Danielle Hunter.
Through the aggregate, they're going to get the same thing that the Browns got for the one guy. I also so if there's
and they can cover.
Yes.
And they have the 3 best corners in football.
Here's the thing. The Steelers finished with a top 10 run defense. So what I really think here is that this is going to be very low scoring. Take the under on this if you're a betting person. I know you are, Felix. I'm not. But you need to get the ball out quick, which we already talked about. We established that. It's the Steelers-Browns game plan. I think that they have to – if I'm the Steelers and we're going to win this game, it's because we basically forced C.J. Stroud into a drop-back passing game, which I don't think that offense – we know that Shanahan-McVay offense – McVay can figure it out. But, the Shanahan offense just really struggles with drop-back passing. Mm-hmm. So, to me, I think that's the only – if there's a pathway, it's that Houston just cannot run the ball. Rodgers is able to get a couple of drives that turn into field goals. It's now 6-3, and the Texans are like, crap, we got to start passing the ball. That's really the only recipe to win. I think that this game is probably going to be like a 20-3 game, and Houston Texans win.
Even in that scenario, I really like Nico Collins to be like, all right, Jalen, I got you. Boom, touchdown.
Yes, I agree.
So
that's why I said
that's where you get 20-3. That's where you get 20-3, where the Texans score 2 touchdowns on a rushing touchdown and Nico Collins play or whatever. But there you go. Yeah. So we both agree Texans probably take that one. I'll ask you for a pick on games as we go. Bills, Jags. Bills are 1.5 favorites. Jags at home. I don't know where to go on this one because I mean, like Josh Allen is Josh Allen, and like they should be. They are the team with the most amount of experience in these playoffs, and like with all the narrative stuff and all that stuff with Lamar gone, Patrick gone, everything you've heard on First Take and all the good shows. Josh Allen should be running through these playoffs, but also a hell of a first round matchup with the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Because where Jacksonville isn't great is where I think the Bills, that's going to be like, can Josh Allen manufacture a passing game? The run deep, like Buffalo can't stop the run.
And I feel like Josh has struggled with the Jags in particular a little bit over they've played 3 times over the last 5 years. And there was that one game a few years ago where they lost to him 9-6. And the other Josh Allen, Josh Hines Allen, had a great game, and he was the better Josh Allen that day. So it's just one of those weird things where the Jags have Justin Herbert's number, they got a little bit of Josh Allen's number. I don't know.
I actually like the Jaguars in this only because I think that they will have better game control. Now, the Jaguars have a really good run defense, and that's really where Anthony Campanelli, the defensive coordinator, has really been able to kind of do some different things, is because he's like, look, we are going to we're going to make you left-handed. Mm-hmm. I think this is going to be who can run the ball better. I think the Jaguars run the ball better, and they're able to kind of gain a little bit of game control. The problem with Jacksonville is their red zone efficiency is not great. So if you can get into the red zone, you can score touchdowns. So the Bills are going to have to make sure. And look, we know this too. Allen's going to bring his Superman cape out for this because he knows look, I'm going to have to make plays. And it's probably going to be in the passing game. If something not open, I'm going to have to scramble. I'm going to have to get us a first down. Because here's the other thing. Neither one of these teams really has a large bite on the pressure side. So this is good. The quarterbacks are going to have time. It's just who's going to be able to then make more plays. I think Liam Coleman goes in really conservative in the sense that he probably figures we're not going to have to score 30 points to beat the Bills. We just need to score about 24. So I'm not going to put it on Trevor Lawrence. And because I think if you go, hey, Trevor Lawrence or Josh Allen, I think we both know who we're both picking in this.
And then Kevin Stefanski is the new head coach of the Buffalo Bills, and that's how quickly that happens.
I would just say, caveat: could you imagine Josh Allen in a kind of a Shanahan style boot action?
In 6 weeks, we may not have to be saying "what if," and I'm going to be so pissed because
he's the ultimate. He's the John.
I'm going to be trying to get excited about Jeremiah Love. Woo-hoo!
Yeah. All right, we talked about this. Kind of already get a preview, so we'll go through this really quickly. So the Patriots and Chargers. Yeah. This is the Paper Tiger Bowl, right? Very
similar teams, offensive line injuries. It's just that their quarterback isn't injured for the Patriots.
Yeah, and to me, I want to see what these two teams. I actually think it's great. This is great that they're both going up because I do agree with you. The Chargers have kind of been floating on by, and you're just how are they as good as they are? The defense is kind of mid. The offense is they can't figure. At the beginning of the year, they wanted to throw. Then at the end of the year, they're just go it back because we don't have any tackles. They can't defend the perimeter. Herbert is literally limping to the finish line. As good as New England has played, the secondary isn't as great as you would think it would be. The Chargers are actually a good unit on that, but they can't really stop it. So it's all the things. And it's whose offense and defense together are going to show up, because I don't think that this is going to be one of those. I don't think it's going to be a 34-30 shootout that we see here. Will that be able to who makes the most mistakes will probably end up losing. And I know that that's cliche. It's that's how it goes in almost every game. But I really think in a game like this, where it's this is razor thin, choosing between these two, because I think we both think they're perceived to be a little bit better than they really are. So who actually is going to come out and win? And I think with New England being at home, does that give them the leg up?
I think it does. I'll ask you this as a Broncos fan. Do you want to see the Chargers next week?
I mean, just because they're in the division. So no, I would. Yeah, let's go Patriots.
Okay.
Let's
I
go
mean,
Patriots.
that's strictly as a fan. I mean,
Yeah, as a fan, let's go Patriots. I don't want to see I would rather not play for a third time
right.
where it was both tight scoring when they didn't have a bunch of guys in, and then they won on a last second field goal. I would rather not do that.
Right. All right. Probably the biggest spread of the weekend, minus 10.5. The Rams as favorites in Carolina over the Panthers, the team that beat them by 3 points just a few weeks ago. But I think that we all believe the Rams are going to buckle in for the playoffs and be like, all right, Stafford, we're getting you an MVP and another Super Bowl.
Yeah, I think if you look at this, we probably don't need to spend too much time on this game just because it analytically, I think it doesn't matter how you spin it. This is probably arguably the best team in the NFL.
A team that backed into the playoffs and a team that backed into the 5 seed for sure, but also.
Yeah, and to me, like Carolina, I can't figure them out. I'm gonna take McVay all day just because it's like I know that their team's gonna come in prepared.
They're winning that game as we speak. Right. They're winning that game right now on that's going to be played on Sunday.
And they're remembering losing to this team. If people forgot that the Panthers beat, and it was a pretty resounding defeat. It was I think the Panthers scored like 30 points, which I think they even had a pick 6 in this game.
I think they had 2 picks, and I think one of them went back for 6 for sure.
Yeah. Which the interesting fact about the Panthers, that the only 2 times that they scored more than 30 points was because they had a defensive turnover for a touchdown. So I know it's at home, it's in Carolina. Stranger things have happened. I don't think this is a very good matchup for the Panthers. I think the only way they win is if Rico Dowdle and Chuba Hubbard just go off and they're able to run for like 200 yards, like the Eagles were able to do last year. Yeah. I think if they come in with a game plan of like the Eagles did last year, like we are going to run the ball. Matthew Stafford will never be able to touch the ball. McVay, you're not going to be able to play with your cool toys. We're just going to hold you in court. We're going to try and score some touchdowns. If that ends up happening, I also think McMillan against this secondary has some opportunities to make plays. He had opportunities against the Buccaneers. I know we had the big pass, the offense pass interference. It was a weird game, rainy game. Bryce Young randomly will play well at home. So I'm just trying to give us a line so we're not the only – like – every show is going to tell you the Rams are blowing them out.
I'm comfortable with just saying like, all right, Bryce, go ahead. We'll win the game for the Panthers. Let's see what happens here.
Yeah, I think like
Jared Verse, Braden Fisk, and Kobe Turner, and like
if Stafford comes out and throws 2 picks though, and they can be like I said, if Stafford comes out and throws a turnover and they're able to sit on the ball rushing, I think that that's the only pathway for the Panthers to win.
Right. All right. Another game that just a couple of years ago was the NFC Championship game, and it felt like it could have been at multiple times this year had things fallen out differently, seeding wise at least. But it is a first round matchup. Eagles 49ers. Eagles are almost 5-point favorites at home. Another interesting thing here because the 2 most interesting sides of the ball will be on the field at the same time: the Philadelphia defense and the San Francisco offense. But the game is probably going to be one on the field where, like, can Jalen Hurts get out there and win the game? Is Saquon Barkley, like, was he saving his legs all season for the playoffs? Where are the Eagles, like, going to show that championship medal? Is Brock Purdy is all that stuff going to kind of come down? But, like, it's also going to be like, yeah, we need the Philadelphia Eagles are probably just more talented offensively. At least they should be and they will win this game by a touchdown, even though it may not feel comfortable for a lot of it.
There's 2 reasons why I think the Eagles will win. One is that the Eagles are the best tight end defense in the NFL, bar none. It's not even close. All those DBs can cover a tight end. In fact, they had like a negative 52% DVOA versus tight ends this year. So it's like, and I don't think anybody was even close. So it was like, it's not a game that Kittle can win. This is also, Fangio knows how to take away a tight end that's the engine. I mean, we saw this last year in the Super Bowl. The other thing that bothers me, I had to throw it in there. Come on.
I know. I knew it was coming because I was thinking it. I was like, oh, man.
I mean, come on. We're talking tight ends and we're talking the Eagles. I had to throw it in. So we've talked about this. 49ers defense, not great, but they don't let you score any points. Mm-hmm. The one thing that worries me about the 49ers defense versus the Eagles is that Hurts is actually pretty good when you don't blitz him. And this is a team that doesn't like to blitz and isn't going to get any pressure. I think they can win some one-on-one matchups outside. I don't trust this offense going forward, but I think that you don't have, let's say Kittle isn't able to kind of go off. I think they match up well with Fangio and, keeping McCaffrey in check. It's going to be a hard day to really pass the ball. You're going to have to run the ball. That's going to grind some clock. Then you on the other side, I think the Eagles are going to be able to move. If the Eagles are able to score touchdowns, that will be the difference. If the 49ers, because I want to give everybody listening, I want a pathway for each team to win, because I don't look, it's the playoffs. If the 49ers are going to win, it's because they're forcing the Eagles to kick field goals, and then yet they're able to score a touchdown or two on that defense. And so I think it's not impossible. I think this is one of the better offenses now that everybody's kind of healthy. We know that Purdy can sling it. We've seen it, but it's the Eagles defense is good. It's not as good as the Seahawks, but this is a good defense. I see this being really close. That's why I'm not really surprised that it's a 4.5 point going into this game for the Eagles. I see the Eagles winning this just because of the pressure aspect of it.
Right. And I think that gets to Purdy a little bit, and he probably gets a pressure sack where Fangio dials it up at the perfect time. All right, Packers Bears for the third time this year. They split the season series this year in a close one to in their first game, and then Caleb had that ridiculous pass to end it in overtime. I do think it does come down to the quarterback. I mean, obviously it's the playoffs, it's the NFL. It comes down to quarterbacks, and with Jordan Love, is he going to step up in the moment? And he's been very good when he's been healthy this season. And is he going to come back and be up to 100%? And then with Caleb Williams, all right, we got to start hitting the layups now. It's when it matters the most now. And can Ben Johnson, at least in his first chance as a playoff head coach, be a playoff head coach?
Well, I think the Bears to me are the classic example of a 3-point shooting team. They're going to win. They're going to win a lot in the regular season because they're getting a ton of turnovers. And Ben Johnson's going to be efficient on that offense, and they're going to score touchdowns. So they're getting touchdowns and they're getting turnovers. And so every time they get the ball, they're going down and scoring a touchdown. My problem is when does that luck run out? Is this one of those deals where it's look, they're not great on defense. In fact, they're a bottom third defense, but because they've gotten so many turnovers, and then it's just they just keep getting them. I always think of it when I look at this and I see that a team is bottom third in DVOA, which is efficiency, but yet they're number one in turnovers. I'm thinking okay, everybody kind of does their bracket, right? We're getting closer to March, right? So everybody's kind of, when you do your bracket, do you really want that 3-point shooting team? You really think that that's all they got is all they do is shoot the 3 and D, right? That's all they do. Well, they don't even D on this. It's just 3-point shooters. We really think that they're going to go all the way to the Final Four. To me, that's the thing is at some point you got to play defense. Defense shows up in this. I think that the Packers, even without a Micah Parsons, that's the other thing too, is and I've gone on a couple of things with Packers people and told them look, I don't think the defense really wasn't that great to begin with. Micah Parsons was a game wrecker, but he wasn't pulling you up to a top 10 unit. Right. So these are really kind of not great defenses. If the Chicago goes over on turnovers, I think the Packers win, just because I think it's going to be a shootout. And I think that the Packers will get 1 or 2 stops, whereas the Bears, if they can't get a turnover, I don't think stop the Packers offense.
Right. But I like Caleb. He's a very good coach.
I know you do. You're biased. I'm trying to give people an actual non-biased approach. I'm not a fan.
Is he not awesome? No, you saw the pass.
He put the flick of the wrist for the 60-yard bomb last week was just whatever, dude. You're an alien.
Oh, man. And also, I heard earlier, nobody's benefited more from the expanded playoff than Matt LaFleur.
Yes, he's the 7th seed.
Year.
Yeah, I think. Well, that's why I think so. Let's circle back to the top. He is somebody to look out for. If they lose and they lose in convincing fashion, I think,
especially they kept it close with them in the regular season, but when it mattered, you lost to them big. Yeah,
and I think they hire Jeff Hafley. I don't think they let Jeff Hafley.
That would make a lot of sense. That would make a lot of sense. I like that.
I heard it here first on Let's Talk Ball.
No, when you get a little bit more conspiratorial, you might end up being more right. But like mine is like, ooh, John Harbaugh to Michigan, and like 2 days later, it's like, all right, Kyle Whittingham.
Yeah, come on, dude. That was a pipe dream. That was fun. That was for clicks. That was
this is Cliff Kingsbury to Kansas City. Let's do it.
Yeah, we got to get the clicks up. All right, let's real quickly so we don't gloss over, and we're gonna finish with the top 2.
We can though. Nobody really cares.
But that's just because one of those teams is in the AFC West and you don't like them. So we'll talk quickly for them. What I'm gonna do, just kind of give you 3 things to think about for this team. The Broncos are a team that are very heavy blitz dependency. So they led the NFL with 68 sacks. They kind of cooled off towards the end, but they give up like 62% completions when they blitz. So this is a feast or famine. If you can throw the ball quickly, what game was it where I thought that they just were like, we're going to throw the ball quick. We're going to throw the ball quick. We're going to throw the ball quick. And it really gave them a hard time. So that is something that you have to think of when you play them, because here's the other thing with quick throws.
If they were playing the Pittsburgh, now that would be a little.
Yes, I don't think that's a good matchup for the Broncos, for the simple fact that I think if you do sit there and you have somebody that's just like, hey, I'm just going to quickly flick this out there, I think that you're 100% correct. I thought the Jaguars did a really good job with it as well, of where they just kind of flicked it out. They did a lot of short throws. They said, look, we're going to run the ball to keep you honest, but we're going to use those kind of perimeter extension, like little quick hitters as extensions of the run game, because that's my second point, is that this is the number 3 run defense in the NFL. So they're going to force you into passing situations. You are going to have to be able to stay ahead of the chains. I think the one concern here is that the offense efficiency is that they remind me, and I've said this multiple times, they remind me of the Chiefs from a couple years ago when it was 4-minute offense the whole time. We're going to keep things. I even think like it pisses Bo Nix off with how like just trotting and slow they're moving down the field.
Oregon. He went to Oregon. Like they've been moving fast since 2011.
He played at Auburn for a spread team too. So he's used to like lining up, let's go. I think the one thing too, like the one saving grace in this is like Sean Payton will not give up the run game. Like he will not run the ball. You are not going to sit there and see him have Bo Nix throw 40 times. That's the only saving grace. So my concern isn't necessary. My 2 concerns is if you play a team, I think the Bills are not a great matchup too for the Broncos, just because a lot of their passing game is very much quick hitter, low, shallow, attack the tight end based. That's not great. That's not a team that you want to go into. So looking at them going forward, look, let's pivot to the Seahawks. Enough about the Broncos. Felix is about to just rage quit.
I'm sitting here thinking about that Super Bowl between the Seahawks and the Broncos. I was like, how beautiful would that be if that happened?
Oh yeah,
43-8. Manny Ramirez right over Peyton Manning's head. First snap of the game. Let's go.
Get out of here. So look, there's not. We've already talked about it too. Like the superlatives are all on the defensive side, right? This is number one. I think in like most categories, they are the number 1 total defense, the number 1 passing defense, the number 1 run defense. They're number 1 in the red zone. They're number 1 on third down. They're number 1 in the middle of the field, which is the most important part of the field. So where are you going to attack them? I think they're really difficult. There really is statistically, there's not a weakness with them. The offense, again, I think like the Broncos and the Seahawks, if they were to meet up in the playoff, like in the Super Bowl, it's that Spider-Man meme of like, we're both pointing at each other. It's like, we both have elite defenses. Our offenses are
talking about a 6-3 Super Bowl. Woo!
Yeah, it'll be that Bama LSU like 9-6 game. But I think and I agree with you though. Like if let's say that the number 1 seed does go, let's say this is who ends up in the Super Bowl. I do think that you have the Seahawks winning it only because that offense is just better than the other offense in the Broncos. So they play conservative. They rely on the defense to win games. They fall behind. They have to do drop back passing. the Sam Darnold effect starts coming in of like, when is he going to turn into a pumpkin? Because we've seen it a couple of times in the year. You mentioned it. Chris Shula basically was like, I'm going to make you hold the ball for 3 seconds. I know you're not going to run, and I'm just going to make you try and throw the ball where you think it needs to go. And he threw 4 picks. So to me, that's my concern. My concern is the offense on both sides. I'm not really concerned with the defense. There are some bruises on the Broncos defense that I think you can attack, especially if you have a good tight end, which we know all the NFC teams have good tight ends. Yeah. The Bills, again, I'm going to say it again. The Bills, again, are a problem. I don't want to see the Jaguars again. I think they're a problem. So going forward for the Broncos, those are scary teams that you don't want to see. I think for the Seahawks, it's just going to be, look, if Darnold goes on a heater, they win the Super Bowl, and it's not even close.
Yeah, I'm going to hold you to that. If the Super Bowl is chalk, the playoffs are chalk, where we got 1 seeds in the Super Bowl, and you said the Seahawks are going to win. You're like, oh no, the Broncos, go Broncos. And I'm like, no.
Everybody should know this about me at this point is I am a fan, not a fanatic.
For sure.
I am not going to go on and like lose my mind because somebody said like my team didn't win or something. That's insane. Like, guys, it's
on the other hand, I'm a psychopath.
You're on the message board. You're on all of them.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah,
Felix is on there
with you guys. Yeah, I'm just
as an anon. Like, he's got some weird photo, so you'll never.
Oh yeah, just burner accounts. I'm like,
he's a total burner account guy.
I'm the Kevin Durant of podcasting.
Well, we've got a big week. Look, we're gonna have a big week. We didn't talk anything college football, but we're gonna have a big week coming up. So make sure that we're watching a lot of football. We'll be back. We'll have all that action. It'll be the national championship. We'll be previewing the national championship and then also kind of that next round in the NFL. So again, go watch football. There's plenty on this weekend.